Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting firm Riderflex. If you enjoyed today's guest interview, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Riderflex podcast. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand. Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
So, Ray, are you in Chicago this morning? Where are you?
I am. I'm downtown Chicago at the Merchandise Mart. It's been raining like you wouldn't believe for seems like forever. So yeah, we're just waiting for spring to roll in.
Okay. And how did we get connected? Remind me, what did I reach out to you? Go for it.
Okay, so I actually think it was Erica at the Panther Group introduced me to Scott, and then I had a call with Scott, and I've since I've actually got another intro for you guys. HR looking to recruit. So yeah, we got introduced by Erica at the Panther Group, who's also been amazing introducing us to some folks as well. So
that's great. Well, I appreciate them doing that. Thank you. Great to be connected. I see we're connected to a few of the same people online on LinkedIn as well, because we're both retailers.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad to have you on the Riderflex show. Thank you. Ray, before we get into business and what you're doing with Progress Retail, tell me about you, the person, early life, family, mom, dad, siblings. Sure. Give it to us. Go for it.
Yeah. So I was born in a very small town in Michigan, at that point, about 10,000 people, called Elma. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and my parents were college professors. So growing up, obviously school was important, but they were also piano professors. So I grew up playing the piano. Stopped playing the piano around age 12. And as the firstborn son of college professors do, you drop out of school a semester in. So that was sort of
that was popular with the parents.
Yeah, I think it definitely caused a little, and that was also maybe before it was maybe as common as maybe as is today.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely had sort of that entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose, early on, whether it was trying to counterfeit Pokemon cards in fifth grade, burning illegal music CDs for your friends and selling them for $5-10. So there were those types of maybe more gray market activities. But yeah, ended up really getting my start in retail, to be honest with you, when I was about 18 on the shop floor in the wireless industry. So really started there, and that was sort of the beginning of figuring out what I was good at, I think, which is such a hard thing to do when you're young. Is sort of where's your skill set lie, and that was probably one of my first opportunities to sort of get a bit of a grasp on that.
So you dropped out of school. You never got your degree then? You don't have a bachelor's?
No.
Okay.
No, I did about a year. And yeah, it was just, I had started my first company, actually. That was the reason I left school.
Really? And what was that, the first company?
Yeah. So out of the wireless retail experience, this was about 2008, so the iPhone was brand new, and there were all the accessories, the chargers, the phones, it was different back then. If you cracked your phone, it wasn't as easy as it is today. Right. So I started a wholesale business in phones, handsets, new, used, and refurbished, parts, accessories, etc. So that was a real education of its own right. The years I ran.
Was that Preferred Mobile?
That was, yeah.
Okay.
That was
Preferred Mobile. So you were kind of doing that while you started school, but you didn't really like school. Then what happened? You started making some money, and you're like, man, I'm making plenty of money doing this. I don't need to go to school. Is that kind of what happened?
Basically, yeah. I mean, the business was in its first year, did 7 figures in revenue, and so
what?
Yeah. So I remember meeting my dad at a Panera Bread and was like, Dad, I don't think I'm going back to school.
Yeah, you're like, Dad, I'm already making more money than you're making, right? You're already
Yeah.
pulling. Did you have how many employees?
We were very lean. I mean,
All
I
right.
had two folks helping me out, but it was very, very lean.
So super profitable then.
Yeah, it was wholesale. So we were working on, margins anywhere from, 10 to 30%. Obviously
Wow.
depending on the category. Was doing a lot of importing and exporting with
Wow.
different countries that were either producing some of the goods like the accessories or things like that, or buying them. So it was
Wow.
interesting.
Where'd the entrepreneurial bug come from though, right? Because your parents were like
Mm.
institutional jobs, right? Did it come from one of the siblings? Like where'd that bug come from originally? Do you know?
I don't, I have spent a lot of time sort of thinking about that and reflecting on that
Mm,
maybe in the last year or two.
mm.
I think interestingly, my great grandfather started a company in 1929 that's still around today.
Oh,
And my dad's brother runs that company alongside his cousin.
I
And
see.
so I think, now my grandfather was not very entrepreneurial. He was a student. He loved philosophy, but he inherited that business from his father, right? My great grandfather.
Mm,
So I think I was around folks at a young age that were successful, that, had their own businesses.
I see.
And we didn't have a ton of money growing up. My parents were obviously both, professors, teachers. So I, definitely, I think, felt that financial pressure as a young kid.
Okay.
And that was just sort of the linear thinking to like, all right, well, then I need to go make something to.
Did you ever work for your uncle or work in that other family business? Did you ever? No?
No, no, I mean, very informally as a young kid in the warehouse, trying not to make a mess, but nothing ever serious now.
Okay. All right. But you were around folks like that and you were like, okay, I'd rather do something like that. I'd rather own my own business than be a teacher and all that stuff. Were you a wild kid? Were you a partier? Were you conservative? Were you in trouble a lot? High school, were you like crazy sneaking out and, getting called? You had to call your parents from the sheriff's office, anything crazy?
Oh, well, yeah, you've nailed about all of it. Yeah, look, I was definitely a high energy kid. Definitely got in
Pretty
a
funny.
fair share of trouble, bit
Okay.
rebellious, tough concentrating in school, sort of thing. So yeah, I made my fun in, unfortunately, the teacher's classroom in a way. So yeah, that
Did-
was definitely
You were the youngest, you said, or you were the youngest of four, you said, or the
the
oldest?
oldest.
You were the oldest. Okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't always setting the best example. Yeah.
Oh, man. Were the other siblings wild and crazy too, or were they like straight A students in the library every Friday? How'd you compare?
They were all pretty good students. I think, I definitely have empathy for my parents. I think it was a challenging situation, raising me. And I think that sort of,
Uh,
in its own way, sort of set them on maybe a much more stable course in terms of, maybe not acting out as much. So I think I became a model of what not to do for them. And they were all great students and, and good, good kids as well. So.
okay. Now, are you folks still alive, still married?
Still alive, not married. They separated initially when I was about 15, and then
Oh,
um,
okay. All right. That right there may have caused some of the wildness between 15 and 18 because that jacked you up a little bit emotionally. I'm sure that probably
sure,
has
yeah.
had. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now
I would definitely say there was more of the acting out before 15.
Oh,
I
really?
kind of mellowed out a little bit. I was also, a fairly competitive basketball player. I played,
Oh,
AAU
oh,
year
oh,
round, and so
wow.
that was my real, love, if you will, throughout particularly middle school and high school. Um,
Oh. Were you you were on the starting high school basketball team when you were junior, senior, all that? You were like one of the main guys? Okay.
Yeah. So I got moved up to. I went to two high schools. So the first high school I went to, I got moved up to varsity at the very end of my freshman year.
Okay.
So
Wow.
we were actually a state runner-up in the state of Michigan. So we were in the state finals my sophomore year. And
Oh,
lost in the
okay.
state finals.
Oh, that was all. No, all right, that was soul crushing, losing in the state championship game. Oh my God, was it close? Was it like within a point or two, or was it a
It
blowout?
was a little more than that, but it was a fairly close game. But yeah, that was definitely hard. And then I moved schools halfway through my junior year. And
All that right there. See, all that shapes you, right? Moving to high schools, losing that championship game, parents getting divorced. See, all of that is seasoning on top of your personality, right? It kind of shapes you,
totally.
like it or not. Okay. All right. Appreciate you sharing all that with me. You married now, kids, single,
No,
partners, spouses? What? Just
very. I'm single right now. No kids.
okay.
This business is all of it right now.
So you never got any? Were you ever close to any long-term relationships? Any? You're in love, almost got married. Anything?
Yeah,
Anything in there?
I had one,
Okay.
probably one real serious one. I met her when it was about 2012 or 13, I think. And we
Okay.
dated for about, I would say, 2 solid years.
Mm.
She was a bit older than me when I met her. So I was probably 23. She was about 28 or 29, I think, if memory serves me correctly. So not a huge gap in age, but I think a significant maturity gap, at least in my situation. At where you're as a young man, I think in your early 20s versus, I'm now 32. So I'm, very different in many ways,
Okay.
as
Okay.
it relates to that.
All right. You thinking you'll stay single your whole life, or you looking for the right one?
I hope not. Yeah, definitely looking for the right one. But definitely,
Okay.
definitely something I want for sure.
You know what's happening? Like we're recording this on May 3rd, 2022, and there's some girl that you're casually dating right now. She's like, "How come you didn't mention me?"
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, by the way, you look like you're 24. I'm sure you've been told that before. You look
Oh, I
like
appreciate that.
you look super young. I mean, you said burning CDs earlier. I'm like, damn, is he 40s? Like, how old is he? You don't CDs. What is that? Burning CDs. All the millennials listening, they're like, what's he talking about? Burning CDs,
So true. So
right?
true.
Oh man. Okay, I appreciate you sharing all that with me. All right, so you drop out of school, you get this going, you're making some cash. That's feeding your ego right there. By that time you're like, okay, this entrepreneurial stuff is easy. No, I can, this is great.
What? So true.
Then what happened? Walk us through your career there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so you're pretty much spot on. It's funny, we didn't even prep for anything for this. So yeah, that was exactly really what it was. You're young, you're making money, you think you have it kind of all figured out.
Yeah.
You may lack some of the fundamentals, or at least some of the disciplines that you obviously need. And you can kind of sometimes, I think, take for granted, market conditions, timing, luck, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And so, long story short, I ended up with a partner. We ended up partnering on a number of wireless retail stores as well, and that was also sort of expanding, obviously, my retail repertoire.
Okay.
But then, I got involved in another business. It was sort of in, homes like that were being serviced by banks and things like that. And so I kind of took my eye off the ball, started extending a lot of credit to customers in my core business. Long story short, ended up getting burned by a few clients all at once. There was some consolidation going on in that industry at that time. Long story short, lost like a couple $100,000, which, at 22 or something like that was a real big hit, not only to financially and mentally, but the ego as well, right? And so I kind of spun out of that. I was like a little bit shell shocked and was like, all right, what do I want to do? And I had a good friend that was always trying to get me into this jewelry brand that was growing in the US. It was called Michael Hill. And so that brand's actually out of Australia. They got a couple hundred stores in the world, about 100 in Canada. And we had a small presence in top malls in the US. And he's like, basically, hey, look, I can, try to fast track you to, being basically like a head of stores. And long story short, that's sort of what I did. So I came into that business, as basically a manager in training, really, and ended up running stores. Had the highest revenue stores for them. Ended up then getting a larger role. And so this is where I really got my retail fundamentals and my real, retail education.
Now, at first, you're like, okay, this sucks being an employee after owning my own business and making money. Now I got like people telling me what to do, telling me when I can go on vacation, when I can take my days off. And at first, surely you're like, okay, yeah, this sucks.
There's probably an element of that. I think, I kind of tried to focus myself on, because you're right, like you get thoughts in your head. And I think one of the things, one of my few skills is the ability to sort of block things out. And that has a good side and a bad side too. But really for me, I just really tried to focus myself on the opportunity, the fact that, I also had the opportunity to make a difference, sort of in that business. And I definitely did. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the good news is you had a lot of experience as a business owner, which there's just so many lessons in that, right? That helped you be an executive for Michael Hill, so to speak. Okay. Head of stores, reporting up to who? Like the COO? Who'd you report to? You remember?
Yeah, so at that time there was a president for the U.S. And then that role ended up getting merged into a North American president, which I left the business by that time. That happened.
So 2016. Why'd you leave?
Yeah, to be honest, the business wasn't really growing in the U.S. and that became really, really clear, and so they cut off management, really, that senior person that I was reporting into and my role, and tried to sort of merge it into Canada. The writing was kind of on the wall, to be honest with you. The CEO of that company he left the business weeks before. So there's a real big change management piece in place, it seems, with that business, and that business is doing very well, which is amazing. And and it's funny, I've actually in my new role met with that management team, on the other side of the table, so to speak.
Interesting.
More recently, so
okay. So, but you leave there, and before, or did you start Progress Retail right after? How'd that work? Yeah, talk to me about it.
Yeah, so through a mutual connection, actually, in Australia, basically Progress Retail was formed out of a previous company that was known as People in Progress, and that who?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so that was founded by a woman named Terry Hawkins, who's Australian, and I met through obviously the Australian connection of Michael Hill as a retailer, and so Terry developed a very unique form of retail training that was highly focused on the human being, the interpersonal, the psychological aspects of retail sales and service. And to be honest with you, most folks, especially talking to retailers every single day, they don't really focus on that. They focus on the product. They focus on the dumbed down sort of acronym-based sales process, but they don't really get into the actual behaviors and skills of whether it's empathy, communication, et cetera. And so, so that was sort of like the DNA of that business. And Terry wanted to get that business online. I was moving into retail tech, and it was like a match, a great match in that respect. And so, that was basically how, Progress Retail was sort of a continuation, if you will, of that business, but now with a platform to, achieve scale.
So you were talking to her and you said, "Hey, I'm thinking about leaving Michael Hill." And she's like, "Cool, come help me.
I had already left. Yeah.
You'd already left. Okay.
We met a couple months after that. Yeah.
A couple of months after. And she's like, "Come help me." And why did you rebrand it? Why did you guys rebrand it Progress Retail?
Yeah. So, the company was originally predominantly a services business, delivering retail training, and it was People in Progress. And so when we built out this platform, for us, I think we really wanted to, from an optics perspective, a marketing communications perspective, really orient that business around the retail industry.
I see.
And so, I think for us, being known as Progress Retail, it's very clear, hopefully, that our target industry is the retail industry, and multiple categories within. And Progress, that was obviously a testament to the original name, People in Progress. But it has a lot to do with really, every part of the fabric of our product, and how we look at, progressing the industry forward.
Did you have to buy in? Did she let you? How did you set up the cap table and ownership? Or, I mean, how did you guys form this organization? She already had it going, so was she like, oh, cool, here's 50% of the company, and you can just, how'd that work?
Yeah, and it's a good question. These things always, I think when you start something and it's early, there's all that excitement and stuff, and you can kind of get going, and so basically, because of the fact that the business was changing rapidly, and we were building out this product and IP from a software perspective, that I certainly wasn't leading all of that myself, but I'm definitely a significant part of that. We basically formed a new corporation that was a continuation of the previous one, with a 50-50 cap table, Terry and myself.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And it's, by the way, for the listeners, progressretail.com. Progressretail.com. Give us the elevator pitch. Progress Retail. I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but give us the pitch. Progress Retail. What does it do? Why should I use it? Talk to us. Go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll just frame it as in the two problems we solve for retailers. So one, retail today is complex. It's only getting more complex. Retail teams have to interact with so many tools just to do their job, formal and informal, everything from getting 25 emails a day to Google Sheets to Dropbox to this, that, and the other. Our platform is a single platform that has dynamic learning, task execution, and company communications built and designed from the ground up for the nuance of retail. So we replace anywhere from 3 to 5 apps for retailers via our single platform that does those things. The second problem we solve for retailers, though, is that traditionally they struggle, just due to a lack of internal capability, typically, to design effective learning content that is engaging, but also creates impact. And so, obviously borrowing from, the original business that we were sort of founded out of, that's our bread and butter, that's our expertise. So with the platform for a retailer, you not only get this platform that you can do all this great stuff with, you can streamline your store operations, et cetera. You also have access to a renowned library of deep retail education in the areas of sales and service training, store management, and leadership development, and more. So that's sort of the two main those are the two main problems we solve and how we go about it.
And you said IP earlier. Is this super secret patented technology that you've launched here that's protected, and how do you fend off competitors?
Yeah, sure. I love that question. I've never, I've been in a lot of these. I've never been asked that. So obviously we have a number of copyrights, trademarks, et cetera. Our software IP is, is the company's, of course. But I was reading in a book once, I think, so about like how Toyota used to always bring the Ford and Chevy executives through the, through their factories and assembly lines. And, they'd all take furious notes and things like that, but no one could ever repeat it. And I say that with humility, in the sense that there's very few folks that we would even consider to be competitors that have the retail expertise that we have. So what I mean by that is, it's not so much the what, it's the how. And for us, because of the fact that our team, we just hired a customer success manager, lifelong retailer, HR, store ops, et cetera. Outside of the engineers, we hire retailers because there's a language to retail. And, we could give them our metaphorical manuals, but it's the how, and how it gets implemented, how it gets executed, how it gets communicated, that, is something that I think we really pride ourselves on. So for us, we're just focused on doing, great work for our retail partners, differentiated work that enables them to achieve, the outcomes they want. So we do. Short answer, we do have IP, of course, but it's certainly it's certainly not something we're fearful of anyone trying to duplicate or replicate.
You're just going to do it better.
Exactly. I mean, well, and I think you focus on the work, you focus on the client, you focus on the industry, where the industry's going. I mean, you focus on, for us, internally, we refer to her as Susie. Susie, she works on the front line. She makes $12 to $15 an hour. She's got a kid at home. She's a single mom. If we design everything and we build everything to optimize her life, she wins, the retailer wins, we win. That's sort of how we like to frame it.
What you just touched on is such a common challenge for co-founders and owners. I mean, hey, running a business is hard, man. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, look, being an employee is easy. You want to do something hard, try and run a business. Okay.
Totally.
And especially with co-founders and co-owners and cap tables and, investors. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. And a lot of times people need to transition out of the business for various reasons. Whatever it might be, they're at a different stage in life. They don't like the stress. They don't like the cash flow. It's not paying them enough. They know they can go be an employee and make 250 grand a year versus making 75 grand a year trying to run this damn company, whatever. Right.
Sure.
And then the learning lessons come into play where you're like, okay, well, how do we do that? Okay, well, what percentage do they own? Let's talk about getting a valuation of the business and what's a fair valuation. And okay, now we got to agree on that. And then how we're going to pay you out. And is it over time? And blah, blah, blah. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And there's so many lessons in that and so many experiences. I'm rambling here a bit, but I think this is all really good information for the listeners of the podcast. My tip or my strongest words of encouragement for anybody listening is this: just make damn sure there's a clean operating agreement,
right,
with very clear content around ownership and what happens if the shit hits the fan. What happens if one of the owners or one of the equity holders wants to exit? What's the process for it? What's the buyout process? Like, all of that needs to be structured in an operating agreement right up front. And so many people don't make sure that's clean. They do exactly what you mentioned earlier, which is let's just get going. Let's see if this can do anything. Let's don't spend time doing a bunch of shit that doesn't matter because we don't even know if this is going to work. Let's just try to get some revenue going. Then you start hustling, you start running down the path, and then you're going, and then you're 6 months in, and then you're 12 months in. You're like, oh, this is actually making a little bit of money. Okay, cool. Maybe this is going to work. And you never get around to buttoning up some of that paperwork, right? And then you're 2-3 years in, and something happens, and then you're like, oh shit.
Totally.
So
I love what you shared, though. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I've learned the most about myself in the last few years doing this, than anything else. And I think that's good, of course, but it kind of goes back to having a really solid understanding of yourself, before you get into these types of things, it's going to help you. I mean, being able to, know who you are and what drives you and what, motivates you, what triggers you, having a really good grasp on sort of that map of you, makes you more effective with others. And I think that, that's especially when you're in business and it is all about, relationships and partnerships, internal and external. I mean, that's just, that's key. So
when you say knowing yourself, I think what's most important there as an entrepreneur is, if you generally do not like risk and dealing with stress and pressure and figuring things out, like if you want a nice structured little stable life where you go 8 to 5 and then you go home and you make a little dinner and you watch your little TV shows and you do it the same way the next day and everything just runs smooth, if that's the kind of life you like, don't be an entrepreneur.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think, adding to that, or building on what you're saying, is that you also then sort of need to work on attracting people into your life that can understand that, and I think and I mean, just as a 32-year-old single guy, that's been a real hard thing with, with dating, if you will. Not that I've done a ton of it, but
Right.
It's like, yeah, I have calls, overseas calls at 7, 8 p.m. Like can't go to dinner like during the week. Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, so that can be tough too, and
Yes.
like how do you sort of build your social life as well? I mean, the little that you do as an entrepreneur, like how can you sort of have positive outlets there instead of just, a bottle of tequila, you know what I mean? So
By the way, you touched on another great topic for entrepreneurs. If you have a vice of any kind that's already a little bit on the edge, whatever it is you're doing, like let's say you're a VP of retail for whoever, Target or something, and you already have some sort of problem, like let's say you're drinking maybe a little bit more than you should. And by the way, I'm a huge bourbon guy, so I love to have a drink. So I'm not bashing people who have a drink,
yeah,
but let's just say you already have some sort of addiction of some kind that is already a little bit close to the edge. If you become an entrepreneur, it's going to get worse.
oh yeah, no question, no question.
So you got to really monitor that. And then that tied to the relationships you talked about. Yeah. You're trying to date somebody, you know, she meets you and you're like, okay, listen, I'm an entrepreneur, which means all this shit could crash next month. I hope not, but could. I work all the time. I'm super stressed. There are no guarantees. There's no promises. I don't have a giant 401k. By the way, the company had to borrow some money, whatever. Yeah. And meanwhile, the girl you meet is like a banker or something that has like a
Right, yeah.
regular job.
No exposure to that kind of lifestyle, and maybe she grew up in a family where dad worked a 9 to 5, so there's just there's no ability to compute like what's going on
No.
here. This guy's crazy is basically what it is.
Isn't it funny when you try to have a beer with somebody that has never been a business owner, never been an entrepreneur, and just like worked for the same company for 20 years? They just have no fucking idea. They just can't relate. I don't care what you tell them. They can't. They just can't
Yeah.
relate.
Yep. So true. And when you hire people like that, or you bring them into your business, and they see whether it's like your marketing automation or your CRM or your meetings getting booked or what your LinkedIn activity or whatever. And I think people, particularly that work in other businesses, they just think that stuff runs on autopilot, like it just happens magically. When they actually see it's like no, it's actually a human being that's teeing up all of these processes, systems, et cetera, to make that look like it ran on autopilot. There's a huge dissonance there in terms
Huge disconnect. One of those that relates to us here at Riderflex. I mean, Riderflex is our day job is a recruiting firm, right? Like we're a recruiting and staffing firm. Companies hire us to place candidates. That's our day job. The Riderflex podcast that we do is a great marketing tool for our clients, our friends, our referral partners, and for us.
Sure.
But my point was going to be, people will call me and be like, "Hey man, wow, you do a lot of podcasts. I want to start a podcast. Tell me how to start a podcast." And I always go, "Bro, you have no idea how much time this takes. Let me just tell you."
100%.
You have no idea. Like to your point, all of it takes a lot of hustle, a lot of hard work, and it doesn't just happen automatically. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So right now, Lean, what do you got? 3, 4, 5, 10 employees, 20? Where are you at? Right now?
Yeah. So we're just under 10. We've got about four or five on the tech side. So inclusive of CTO, product leader, engineers. Just hired customer success, got an operations assistant, tech support that kind of helps in billing as well. So yeah, we're just about that, 8, 9 mark, I think, all up. Revenue generating in 4 countries. So
are you burning cash, or are you profitable? And did you have to borrow any cash? Have you raised any? Go ahead.
So we're 100% bootstrapped with debt. So not venture debt or anything like that. Just long-term liability.
Family debt or bank debt? Where'd you get the cash, if you don't mind me asking?
Bank debt. Yeah.
Okay.
So yep.
And what'd the bank sign off on? The IP? What'd you use it for collateral?
Yeah, well, actually, the majority of it's the SBA, to be honest with you.
Great. Good for you.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a great tip for awesome.
Yeah, so that's
Awesome.
the majority of it. There's some that's slightly higher, that we're going to refinance or just pay off here in the next, 6 months. But yeah, look, I mean, for us, COVID was I think for many people, right? It was a bit of a curveball, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
And so, now we're sort of in this phase where, we will be potentially looking at, raising around our first round. I think for us, we've got obviously a revenue generating business, that's, established product market fit in I believe at least 1 to 2 categories within retail. So,
So, all right. So you're generating revenue. Are you burning? I cut you off there because I asked you like 4 questions at once. Are you burning cash or are you profitable month to month right now?
we're going on a heavy engineering sprint right now. So
Okay.
we are burning some cash.
Okay.
We will dial that back a little bit, sort of actually in the next about month, because we're sort of finishing a major phase of engineering.
Okay.
So yeah, look, once we dial that back, we're cash flow positive month to month.
Good for you. But the cash originally came from bootstrapped SBA loan. Did you get an idle and PPP and all that stuff as well during COVID?
Unfortunately, we didn't get much for the PPP because, we had such few, sort of W-2 employees at that time.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, EIDL was one of them for sure.
Great.
And yeah, that's sort of
Okay. All right. Very good. So,
obviously revenue, right? That's the best.
got that right, brother. Are you able to pay yourself? Are you paying yourself a little bit, enough to
Yeah.
survive? Well, okay.
Enough to survive. Look, I'm as single, no kids, so I'm happy to. I'm the lowest paid employee in the company, and that's how I think it should be. So, yeah.
Hey, hello, listeners. Hello, listeners. If you're in startup phase with 10 employees and you're the CEO, you're probably the lowest paid.
Yep.
My first year at Riderflex, as a recruiting firm, I paid myself like $30,000. And keep in mind, as a retail executive before that, I was making like whatever 250 or something.
Sure.
I started Riderflex. My wife's like, "Oh, that's cool. That's fun. Like, how much is that going to pay?" I'm like, I don't know for sure."
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You better be ready with some savings or a spouse that can supplement a little bit or help you pay the bills, if you want to be an entrepreneur. And however much you think you're going to make in your first 2 or 3 years, you just go ahead and slice that in half by 50%.
It's true. It's so true. I mean, everything takes longer.
Yes, yes, yes,
Everything takes
yes.
more than you forecast. But I think if you stick with it, and that's sort of what we're starting to now see now, is that those incremental building blocks you do build on this foundation becomes quite compelling over time. And it takes time to realize that, though, and it takes a hell of a lot of perseverance, resilience, and adversity to risk, because there is so much of it, for sure.
So what happened was, for you had an early entrepreneurial experience. So you had the bug a little bit, but then when you had that early success, bam, now you're locked in. You're a lifelong entrepreneur. It's hard to get away from it. You went and did the other job, which was great, for Michael Hill, right? And you learned a lot there. I think it was Michael Hill, right? Yeah, you learned a
Yep.
lot. You learned a lot. Gave you some foundational things that you probably needed. So good experience. Good experience,
Definitely.
right? But that entrepreneurial thing was in there, right? The bug was in there. You're like, okay, I've already tasted it. I want to do it again. You got the risk levels for it, and now here you are. You got involved with this co-founder, and then now you're taking the business to the next level. She's exiting out. Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, congrats. So what's the plan? Is this a lifestyle? Hey, let's just build this and have some fun. Or are you gonna try to sell it someday? Do you have a magic plan? Or right now you're just like, hey, I'm just hustling. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we have some pretty ambitious growth targets. I mean, we're
Okay.
we're experiencing a real growth curve right now, fortunately.
Great.
There's a confluence of factors that are, enabling that. Our product strength is one of them. But there's, the industry, the retail industry is looking for tools like ours. There's still a tremendous amount of I talked to a major retailer last night overseas. They're still inducting their team members with a paper-based manual. It's happening. But they know it's not effective and it needs to be, reevaluated. And so tools like ours are, definitely, having their moment. And so for us, yeah, look, as mentioned, we're revenue generating in 4 countries. We want to own those 4 countries. And then we want to, eventually, scale this thing globally. And what that looks like from, an exit strategy, there's, certainly it's really early or premature rather for me to sort of, say anything now, but we definitely think there are some opportunities. I'll put it that way.
What is the future of brick and mortar retail, my friend? I mean, I spent many years in retail. That's where I grew up before we started Riderflex. But boy, it's a different landscape. I mean, where's it going? Where's brick and mortar going? And before you answer that, let me just tell you, like, I hate going to the store, bro. Like, I order everything from Amazon. Like, if I have to go down to Best Buy and get something, I'd rather stick needles in my eyeballs. So,
Sure.
where's brick and mortar going, and where does that mean for your business?
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's definitely some shopping experiences, some categories that don't necessarily render or require, a physical visit to the store. So, I think like Best Buy is a great example. Consumer electronics are largely commoditized. They have an excellent, Best Buy I'm speaking of in particular, they have an excellent, buy online, pick up in store, solution, or ship from store, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But, look, I think stores are obviously, we're finding, are essential to a retailer's overall strategy. It's a lower cost acquisition channel. It's the highest engagement channel when you can get someone into your store, and you can actually have them touch and feel the product or experience the product, depending on what the actual category is. Mm-hmm. So, for every 1 store that's closing, I was reading a report the other day, 5 are opening. Store openings are, consistently outpacing closings.
All right.
But it's very category dependent, right? So I think you look at, obviously Erica from the Panther Group introduced us on the basis of cannabis retail, which, that's largely a physical shopping experience and probably will be for the foreseeable future. But other high touch categories, whether it's luxury, whether it's, beauty and cosmetics, those categories are still very strong, in person. And so,
okay.
But I also think the stores are doing so much more than they were doing before, right? When we talk about fulfillment, when we talk about, just some of these omni-channel activities or whatever. So the store is still there. It's just the teams are doing different things now. It's not just about servicing customers.
Okay. Got any cannabis retail clients?
Yeah, got a bunch. It's a real strong segment for us. So
have you had a CEO for a cannabis retailer and you go to dinner and they're like, okay, man, let's go out to the car. We're going to partake.
It's funny. Not yet. We've got, some great ones though. We've got the largest single state operator in the country, Loom out of Michigan.
Okay.
Got one out in your neck of the woods, Strawberry Fields. That they came on. So. All right. Yeah, we've got a handful throughout the U.S. and then a fair number in Canada as well.
We have a big client at Riderflex. We placed about 100 people into this cannabis company, and we were taking the CEO to dinner to say thank you and all of that. Yeah. And casually, like just kind of being friendly, and I'm a social special occasion cannabis user, if I'm at a party or if it's maybe special date night or whatever, like, well, I'll consume. Sure. But my partner is a much more conservative and like rarely has, just a few times in life. Anyway, we're at dinner with this client who owns a cannabis company, right? He's a founder, right? So he's obviously a huge cannabis guy. And I say, I go, hey man, thank you so much, appreciate the business. And, let's, maybe someday let's smoke together, and have a good time. Yeah, we'll catch. And he goes, well, how about right now? He goes, because we're at a restaurant. He goes, how about now? He goes, let's just go outside. Now, I'm like, okay. And my partner was like, dude, I haven't smoked in 20 years. Like, I don't even know what to do. What if I'm, because he goes, this guy, the owner goes to the restroom. He's like, okay, I'm going to go to the restroom, pay the bill. We'll go outside. And my co-founder, he's freaking out. He's like, holy shit, bro. He's like, what, we're going to smoke right now? Like out on the street? Like, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, this is a huge client. We're going to do whatever he wants. So like, if he wants to smoke, we're going to smoke. So anyway, make a long story short, we go outside of the street. This is Denver, by the way, which is a little more relaxed.
Sure.
But still, this guy's a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
Millionaire, owns a huge cannabis company. He lights up right on the street, right on
Right.
the street. People walking by, and me and my co-founder were like, "Oh shit! Like, oh, okay, is this cool? Like, are we gonna get arrested? I don't know. How does this work? What are we doing here?" Anyway, to make a long story short, my point of all that is, if you have cannabis customers, Ray, if the CEO that's paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars wants to go to a party late night, you're probably gonna have to go.
Oh yeah, no question. And I've, definitely, I'm no stranger to a party. So yeah, I'm always game, especially with great clients. That's great opportunities. Yeah. 100%.
We're almost out of time. Last two questions. If you could go back in time and finish school, knowing what you know now, would you?
No.
Okay. You're with Elon Musk, right? Schools then, because I'm sure you've heard him say in that famous interview where he's like, yeah.
I wouldn't go back to school, but I think there's other forms of education that I would have taken part in, and I think one of the most powerful things I did was I joined this men's group, and it really taught me a lot about myself, where I come from, how I am the way I am in some ways, and being able to settle in, like, to me, that's more valuable than, getting a degree and an undergrad, at least, in, an average topic or something. Yeah.
So keep learning, open your mind, be part of organizations. Doesn't necessarily have to be a bachelor's degree. That's what I hear you say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, to be successful in life, you have to keep learning. It's just what it looks like can be different for everyone. Yeah.
Speaking of Elon, are you glad that he bought Twitter? Are you a fan of that or no? Do you want to comment on that?
Look, I think, beauty of capitalism in this country is that people that have money can spend it how they want. And I'm stunned. I will comment on it. I haven't really done this on LinkedIn, but for the purpose of this, I will. I'm just stunned at the outrage. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. When we all use things like Google and, every single day, and, what's the difference between, Google's attitudes on certain things and, Elon Musk? It's like, at the end of the day, like, let's just be good in our communities. Let's take care of our clients, our families. Like, I just don't really personally care. I love Twitter. I think it's a great product. And I'm excited to see what, Elon wants to do with it, if it all goes through, which I hope it does. But
yeah. I was a fan. I'm like, yeah, cool, great. Hey, if it opens the platform for more free speech and more and less one-sided narratives, I'm for it. Last question. Your core purpose in life, if you had to summarize it into a sentence, what would that sound like for Ray?
Yeah, I guess I'm glad I'm being asked that now, as opposed to like years ago. I wouldn't probably have had a good answer. I mean, now, for me, it's really about my family and an extension of that's legacy in a way. Like, I really want to build something that, or build some things, that I can hopefully pass down to another generation, and have them hopefully, continue to grow it. So that's really what orients me in terms of purpose, for sure.
Thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast, Ray. Appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.